came across Muruganatham's story while researching a column for the Times of India, and it immediately gripped me. So here was a man who saw a problem. He saw his wife using a rag cloth instead of a sanitary pad, as they could not afford it. He said that the rag cloth was so dirty that he would not use it to clean his bicycle. And then he decided that he would make a low-cost sanitary pad for her. He had many obstacles in this path because first he didn't find any women, since it's a taboo subject, who would help him test out these sanitary pads that he made. So eventually, and I think this was what really gripped me, he decided that he will test it himself. And he put a sanitary pad between his legs. He got a plastic packet of blood and a pipe connected to it. And he went around cycling everywhere with blood dripping between his legs, seeing whether his pad would leak or not.
What an amazing story. And didn't he get...
I thought it was a remarkable story.
And when it was known he was doing this, though, he got a lot of criticism. I guess he embarrassed some of his family and friends.
He was ostracized from his village. His wife left him. His family deserted him. And but he didn't stop. He persevered. And what was even more interesting is that he did eventually manage to make a low-cost sanitary pad. And he took a machine which costs in Indian rupees 3 crores, and he converted that into 4 small components, which would make the sanitary pad for 60,000 rupees.
And is that now used?
Yes, it's used, and what he does is he sells these machines only to NGOs and women's organizations. So not only do women get a cheap sanitary pad, but they also get a way of earning a livelihood. So I thought this was a story that really needed to reach every household in India and perhaps globally, because I think the taboo around menstruation is not just in India, it's a global problem. So I wrote a book on this, and then unfortunately we are a world of viewers and not readers, and I thought the best way for this to penetrate into most households would be to make a movie.
And when you approached him, thinking about everything he's gone through, being criticized or ostracized, was it hard to persuade him to become the subject of your film?
I think he was very reluctant at first. I kept pursuing him, and he wouldn't take my calls. And eventually, I met him for the first time in London because he finally, I would call him every single day, wherever I was in the world, and this went on for months, and he finally took my call, and he said, I can't meet you because I'm in London. And I said, I'm on the outskirts, and I'll drive down right now. And I met him, and I managed to persuade him that his story needed to be shared.
That sounds like one very determined person meeting another very determined person. And is your film going to be shown in India?
It will be shown in India, and again, like I said, menstruation, there are multiple ramifications to this problem, in India especially. One is just 23% of women in India use sanitary pads or tampons. This leads to disease, so you have fungal infections, you have reproductive infections, you have links to cervical cancer, infertility, that's one. The other thing is we talk about women's empowerment, but the problem is that research is showing us that 20% of schoolgirls drop out once they begin menstruating because they can't afford sanitary pads. For a while I thought that this was just a problem in my country, and I recently discovered that it's a problem even in England. There's a survey in Leeds where they found that girls from low-income households were dropping out of school because they could not buy sanitary pads.
It's such a basic thing, Twinkle, isn't it? It's such a basic thing about being able to get a cheap sanitary pad for the time in the month that every girl has.
Exactly. And then the other thing is the tax, For some strange reason, India has 12% GST tax on sanitary pads, which is shocking. Apparently, there are no taxes on brooms, so I think they feel that women should keep their houses clean, but it's not as important to keep themselves clean. I can't understand. America in many states has taxes on sanitary pads, doesn't have it on Viagra. Again, I don't understand that.